welcome to another month of, or another meeting this month for the Angels, Investors, Female Founders and Investors, Angels at Essex, Female Founders and Investors Group. It's a mouthful, short FE. So if you wanted to Twitter about us as well, we have the hashtag FE, which makes it a little bit more attainable. But welcome. And as always, if you were at our very first kickoff meeting last month, you know all about it by now. But if you don't, this is a female-led group to meet and greet, a safe space for coming together for female founders and also female investors, and just have some wonderful talks, have some connection with each other, have some discussions, and just bringing this platform to you as kind of a monthly just brainstorming session, I guess, or just meet and greet and network.
So some of you will probably recognize me either from the last meeting that we had or from the University of Essex. So I'm one of the enterprise officers in the Essex startups team. And I've worked there for about 2.5 years now, working with all student and graduate businesses, so helping them develop and support them and grow into some fantastic businesses we've had. Also, just a quick reminder to some people, or a new thing to those that have not joined us before, I also have founded a couple of businesses in the past, but one I'm still working on at the moment, which I'm still heavily involved in, is my children's entertainment business as well. So I do that alongside my work at the university. And basically it's such good fun, sort of entertaining children, dressing up as a Disney princess on the weekends, which is quite different to my everyday attire. But yeah, it's just a real passion of mine, and it's great to sort of be here with everybody else and other female founders that are interested in growing and developing their businesses, really. So that's me. I'll pass you over to Magda.
Yeah, hi everyone. Again, again, as Lauren was saying, either you've met me also at the university, or you've met me maybe last meeting before, but I am also a female founder. I've had several businesses before this when I came to the UK 10 years ago. Since then, I've worked with the university. I'm an entrepreneur in residence at the University of Essex, and working with Lauren in our team to support the students. I've been doing that for about 4.5 years now. And on the side of that, I'm also a co-founder now of my own startup for the last 1.5 years. We are an enterprise educator for the region around North Essex and South Suffolk. And we work very closely with the Enterprise Agency, with Essex County Council on delivering accelerators and different programs there as well. But that's just in a nutshell. Other than that, I'm a fur mother for my fur baby George, just a little bit on the side, but he might just step in at any point. But right, without further ado, we have a lot of I think on the agenda today. So we have 2 wonderful guest speakers today. We have Gina and Hatty. We will introduce them as next, going first with Gina, and then if we do have the time, we will break out into a little discussion round like we did last month with a different topic, just so you all can sort of discuss certain things, meet and greet, and then we announce our upcoming events at the end, plus something we've listened to you, what you mentioned last meeting to us.
So our first speaker we have is Gina Gardner, and she's joining us, which is really exciting actually, because I have actually heard one of her talks before, and it was very empowering, and I thought it was fantastic. So she is the founder of Genuinely You, also a motivational speaker, empowerment coach, leadership trainer, all those sorts of things, and she's had over 30 years of experience in the industry as well, which is fantastic, helping people sort of achieve the success and the leadership in their own lives. So I will pass over to her. She's going to do a wonderful talk for us about the power of a positive mindset. So Gina, over to you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'd just like to spend a couple of minutes telling you a little bit about my background, because I think it is really relevant. I ran an award-winning school for the most part from a wheelchair for over 20 years. And the gift in that disability was that I had to find a way of empowering my staff to take radical responsibility for their own performance and a shared responsibility for the team. It was incredibly successful. And we were on the best 100 schools list in the country twice during my tenure. I left headship in 2004. And in those days, schools had changed and we were responsible for our own budget. So effectively, we were running a business and my budget was just over $1.5 million and I employed just under 100 people. So in 2004, there I am, and I have to think, what am I going to do? And I'd left because of my health. I was working a 14, 15-hour day, and I wasn't ready for daytime TV. And so I decided to do a research project across industry to look at leadership and what were the issues facing leaders. And I started up my first business, which is Gina Gardner Associates, which is still currently operating. Although I have to say, because it was all face-to-face, the pandemic had a significant impact on that. I then realized that actually I wanted to touch more people. I had this very strong sense of purpose and of service. And so I set up Genuinely You, and that's all based online. And what I've recognized, I've studied highly successful people, highly successful business people. And what I recognize is that the thing that makes the difference between success or not is the power of having a successful mindset. So how do you create and maintain success in business? And I've already seen, you won't believe how many times I've proofread this, but I've already seen two typos, so my apologies for that. What is the difference that makes the difference in business? Now, whether you're a startup or you're an established business and you are the business owner or entrepreneur, the thing which is going to make the biggest difference is you, what you believe, your behaviors on a day-by-day basis. And it's all too easy to blame the economy, to blame the pandemic, to blame everybody else. But recognize that more millionaires are made during times of depression than are ever made in times of boom. And what's the difference between those people who succumb to those external forces and those who don't? And the difference is how you maintain a success mindset. So let's think about your beliefs. And there are three basic types of beliefs. The first one is, I think I'll fail. Now, people who think they'll fail very often fail to get started, because they have this skewed view that if I don't try, then I won't fail. The second set of beliefs is, I think I might fail. And so you will make decisions based on, oh, I might fail, so I'm not going to go full out because what will happen if, and what will people think, and. But highly successful people all work on the basis that the only failures are that you'll fail to give things a try and you'll fail to give 100%. And that you'll fail to learn from the things that don't go to plan. We don't learn very much when everything's going swimmingly, but we do learn when things go wrong. And so the mindset is about success. I will succeed. You don't need to know how, but you do need to know that you are going to succeed. And you have to recognize that you are the leader of not only your life, but your business. You're the common denominator that you take into every moment of every day. If you take radical responsibility for yourself and recognize the patterns that you exhibit in terms of your thinking, your speaking, your actions, then you will recognize that you have the responsibility. Nobody can make you unhappy unless you choose to let them. So thinking about yourself as the common denominator within that, I would really urge you to look at those patterns. Think about, what do I stand for as a leader within your business? What are what's the thing that really drives you? And many people will say, well, it's the profit. But ultimately, if profit is your driver, your business won't do as well as if you have a really good understanding of what your why is. What is your purpose? You talked about being a princess at the weekend, and I'm sure that some of that is the fun. But actually, just as important, I suspect, is that you want the children who are there to have a magical experience. And you want the parents to be able to witness their children having a magical experience. And that will be the why. And although the profits are important, don't get me wrong, they come as the outcome of your thinking and your activity, rather than you're driving your business based on hard targets. And my belief is that that's one of the things that is making businesses fail, because they are failing the people within those businesses by setting targets that are unmanageable and unreachable, by not caring about them as people. And we could have a whole day session on just those two things. But ultimately, what do you stand for? And for me, I'm all about enlightened, profitable leadership. And that means standing for integrity, compassion, and having the courage to do what's right. So I would say to you, what does your business stand for? What do you stand for? How do you treat the people that work with you? How do you treat your customers, your suppliers? And for me, those businesses that have integrity will stand the test of time, so long as they actually work effectively and strategically. But you have to start with you. You are the leader of your own life, and you are the common denominator. So it's not about what you said, do what I say. It's what do you do? How do you lead? And how do people know what your business stands for? Many people I've worked with have no clear idea of what success looks like for them. And so they never know where they've met it. And a bit like happiness, I'll be happy when, and there's a long list of things that have to be in place, but you keep on changing the criteria, so you don't ever have a chance to really recognize the milestones and to celebrate your success. And there is nothing that motivates people more than success. It breeds more success. So what are the criteria for you? And again, if it's just profits, you're going to be disappointed. But if yours is that your success criteria are holistic and broader, then you'll be able to identify clearly the milestones along the way and celebrate those. But also recognize that you need to be flexible and things will happen. I launched a big accredited leadership program 2 weeks before the pandemic. Nobody wanted to invest a chunk of time on money, although it was probably a great time to do it. So you have to do things differently. And knowing what your success looks like will facilitate strategic planning. And any business that's going to succeed has to plan strategically. And that has to come through that success mindset. You plan for success and you plan for things not going to plan. So your success needs to be flexible enough, but at the same time will work for you when you have a really clear idea, not only what you want to achieve, but why that's so important. And when you have those success criteria clearly, then that supports effective communications with everybody. So often when I go into businesses and I work with them to turn those businesses around into becoming profitable businesses, nobody's clear about what the success criteria are. They're very clear about when they don't get it right, but many of them don't have a clear indication of what they're aiming for and why that's important. And of course, it enables you to monitor your progress as you go through. And effective monitoring and evaluation should be built in from the beginning, in my opinion, not something that you tack on to the end, which is what often happens. And it creates a sense of achievement. And that sense of achievement, as I've already said, is a great motivator. So what is your why? Why are you in business? And I'll give you a small example of what I mean. I was talking to someone and they were in the financial world, one of my clients. And they were saying, I can't get my staff to really get engaged in this. And I said, well, what's your why? He said, well, we create and offer small loans to business people. And I said, yeah, but what's your why? And he looked at me, because it was in the days of face-to-face, and said, I don't know what you mean. I said, That's not a why, that's a how. You're giving loans to, or not giving them, but you're loaning money to small businesses. Why? And he looked at me and he thought and he thought and he thought, and then he came up with, well, I'm helping those businesses thrive. And why is that important to you? Because in doing so, I can help them to have the freedom and success that they dream of. And in doing so, I play a part in that. I said, do you think if you share that with your staff, that they'll be more inclined to give their all than we just give loans to business people? I want you to think about, what is your why? It is so important to seek advice and support. Because if you think about taking a journey, you're going on an expedition and you're going into the jungle. Would you go into the jungle unprepared without a guide? No, the likelihood is you wouldn't, or if you did, that you'd get lost or eaten. But people who have walked that road before, people who have experience and who model that well, can give you the advice and the signposting so that you don't get caught in swamps and in quicksand and in cul-de-sacs, that you can speed up the way in which you are able to move forward. We're moving from a time where it's an information society, nobody can know it all, to knowing how you can find out, who you can find out from, who you can trust. But I would urge you, even if you're a one-man band, do not believe that you can do it all, because you'll go into burnout. You just can't. What you want to be aiming for, I would suggest, is that you employ, if you have staff, employ the best of the best and look for people who are better than you. Your job is to coordinate them and to nurture them and to encourage them, rather than you being the best boy or girl in the class. Not only do you need to model excellence from those who have experience, but you need to be the person modeling excellence within your organization. And I would really urge you, we use these words without everybody having the same understanding. So the word excellence, what does it mean to you? Because the chances are it means something different to your staff. But if you're having ongoing conversations that in the context of this organization or this department, excellence looks like, so let me give you an example. I work with an award-winning hotel. They had problems with their housekeeping staff. They weren't doing what they wanted. And so we set up a session where the housekeeping manager asked everybody to identify what did excellence look like in the situation of cleaning a bathroom, that detailed. And they came up with their criteria for excellence for cleaning bathrooms, and then they did it for bedrooms. And then everybody had a shared understanding of exactly what was required. But in business, we so often talk about, yeah, it needs to be better, it's not good enough. Or, we're striving for excellence. It's almost meaningless unless you attach the behaviors that you want to see and experience from other people. So you model the excellence of others, and then you model excellence to your staff, your suppliers, and your customers. You are the common denominator, remember that. And you need to be demonstrating your vision, your core values in the behaviors and the language that you use, and adapt the knowledge to your specific circumstances. Because it's worked for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Now, I've got loads of resources. If you go onto my website, these are just some of my books. And some of them are books where you can just read them through. Some of them are active working books that will help you become the leader that you want to. But there are lots of resources there. You can join the website, but there's lots of opportunities from there. Genuinely Use just one of those websites. So lots of free resources. It keeps on popping to the websites. You can see the genuinelyu-u.com, the enlightenedleadership.co if you're interested in an expanded course. Gina Gardner Associates has got lots and lots of resources there. Or you can email me at gina@genuinely-you.com.
I really enjoyed that, Gina. Like I said, I've seen one of your talks before, and I do find I try to think like that as well. I think that positive mindset and just believing in yourself, isn't it, is just really important when you're starting, building your business, developing it, or anything like that. And it's just having that proper mindset, and it's difficult to get that sometimes. So I think listening to what you've said.
Thank you. The issue is, if you don't believe in you, then how do you expect other people to believe in you? And I think it's really important that you listen to other people's advice. And if they say to you, well, what are you starting a business for? You know, you've never finished anything in your life. You do have to listen to that and recognize, again, you're the common denominator. Look at your patterns of behavior. But ultimately, your beliefs and your behaviors are what's going to make the difference to your business.
The why is so important, as you mentioned. That's always one of the things. Like, if the money can never be your driver, because that's going to fizzle out very soon, very quickly, and you're not going to get up in the morning to do what you need to do. So you need to have an inner purpose and a passion, and you need to identify what that is, to always bring it in difficult times, to bring that forward, and that keeps you going.
It certainly does.
When you first started out sort of working for yourself, did you have any guidance, mentoring, that sort of thing? Or was it sort of you just started out and then you built up from there? Or?
I'd had experience of, as I say, of running my school as a business. And I'd also, through the Beacon scheme, I'd worked with many other schools in terms of developing leadership. And in a sense, being a leader, it doesn't matter what the organization is, effectively leading your family, leading something within the community, or leading a business. There are so many common strands to that. The one difference, of course, is your business has got to make money. And many people, I think, start off with that in mind, and they don't recognize that when you start off, particularly if you're a one-man band, that it's blooming hard work.
It is.
For example, when I started off Genuinely You, I'd been very lucky with Gina Gardner Associates. After the first 2 years, I didn't have to market myself at all. Everything came through word of mouth and recommendation. Very well blessed. I then set up Genuinely You, which was an online business. Well, you're all a lot younger than me, apart from John, who's the same age as me. So I can say that. It's not often I can say that. But I didn't have a Facebook page. I didn't have a LinkedIn account. My technology levels were rudimentary, and there are some who would argue that they've not improved that much, but there we go. When I was at school, I had an IT technician, and I would just go to him and say, John, I need this. And he'd say, when by? And I'd say, yesterday. And he'd say, okay, I'll do my best. So recognize that when you are starting up your business, you've got to give it wholeheartedly. And, you know, lots of people give up before they've had any chance to succeed. How many of you have got Dyson Hoovers? You know, he made nearly 2,000 prototypes before he had a saleable Hoover. If he'd given up at, 1,999, he wouldn't be the multimillionaire he is now. But I think there are other things. You've got to look after yourself, because if you go into burnout, nothing's going to work. And, take care of yourself. Be the leader of your own life, because then you have the capacity to lead your business. But recognize, if you're starting up a business, don't do it half-heartedly. Be fulsome about what you're doing. I investigated, I talked to people, I did my research project before I started Gina Gardner Associates. I've been on lots of courses, some of which have been fabulous, some of which have been dire. You need to really be quite picky about who you're going to go with and what you're going to do. And because they say they're good doesn't necessarily make them good. So do your due diligence and trust your intuition. Richard Branson talks about trusting his intuition to determine, have I got the right data, enough data? Should I make a decision now or wait? Warren Buffett talks about using his intuition in his business, and that he failed to do it early on in his business and it cost him $1 billion. So all of these things come to light, and I'm sure, Harriet's going to talk to you about aspects of leadership. You can't do it all in one session. This is mouthful by mouthful. If you imagine eating a cow or a whole field of corn, if you're a vegetarian, you couldn't do it in one sitting, but break it down into manageable chunks. And that's one of the reasons why knowing what your success looks like and breaking it down into milestones is so important.
When you started your journey, did you have some challenges that you had to overcome yourself?
Right. So for me, I've got physical challenges. And although I can walk short distances now, I can't walk far, and I have to conserve my energy because fatigue has been at a ski accident in 1983. And since then, fatigue has been my constant companion. And it's actually quite a gift, really, because it makes you think, what is it that's important? And we all get very caught up in being busy. And being busy is the kiss of death to a business owner, because you're doing stuff rather than prioritizing what's important. Other challenges, my lack of technical know-how. I've learned the things. So, for example, if you go onto the Genuinely You YouTube channel, you will see there are hundreds of videos. Well, when I first started, I didn't know how to do it. I was very, very reluctant to speak to a machine. It didn't feel right. Now I do it as second nature. Step out of your comfort zone and it will expand. So be ready to do new things and be ready to try things, and they are abject failures. You're not the failure. The thing has failed. So the question is, has it failed because intrinsically it's the wrong thing to do? Has it failed because I've not approached it right and I can adjust that and approach it right? Is it not the right time? But you've got to have resilience, particularly as a new business owner. Ultimately, if you want this to succeed, you've got to drive it. And sometimes it feels like driving a bus uphill without an engine. But if you know your why, that's what keeps you going.
One from Dick Wallace, he's asking, do you recommend an ideal TRL before seeking new investment?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. And it's so broad. I think it has to be much more specific to your circumstances and your business rather than something that's broad as that. So, I'm very clear with the people I work with that, where my areas of expertise are and where they're not. But for me, I think that has to be very specific to your business and your circumstance.
Yeah, I was going to ask, and I think, Gina, thank you, like the best 15 minutes of my week. You were so inspiring. I needed that. Thank you. So I was going to ask, when you're at that point of burnout, which I am, and you said when you started out, you didn't have Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram, and I'm sure we all feel the same, that we spend so much time feeling these days like our businesses aren't hidden. We have to be on the ball 24/7, watching what's going on. And I'm the first to admit that this week I have burnout. I'm exhausted. Right. Do you have any advice?
I do. First and foremost, self-care. Self-care, not self-indulgence. Okay. So make sure that your diet's right. If you're putting rubbish in, you'll have no energy. Okay. Yeah. Hydrate. Breathe. When you breathe deeply, you move from left brain logical catastrophizing either or into right brain creativity. We've not talked about feminine energy. We could again spend a whole day on women. Use your feminine power, your creativity, your capacity to look for solutions. Okay. That's a whole
and multitask.
Right. Multitasking isn't always the best thing to do, because you end up doing nothing really well. So I would say to you, if you're finding yourself in burnout, don't try and do all of those platforms at once. That's the first thing. Focus on one.
Yeah.
Get that set up. One big piece of advice, and I've now got something like 170 articles on LinkedIn. Create a spreadsheet of your resources from day one with the links. I had to go back and do it early. I did it in the first lockdown. It took me weeks because I'd got so much stuff. Start to organize it from day one. Don't use my mistake. But look after yourself, make sure you're getting proper rest, and you are also filling up your batteries. So for me, that will be going out into the garden. It'll be getting into nature. It could be reading or listening to music. Take 5 minutes and just center yourself and breathe, and you will then work far more effectively. And if you're sitting at your computer for hour upon hour upon hour, you become less and less and less effective. Learn to know your patterns and where your optimum focus is. There are days for me when that's 10 minutes. There are days for me when that's 3 hours. So learn to know yourself and don't drive. I mean, I've done it myself. Don't drive yourself to the point of exhaustion. You'll be ill and then you will never catch up. So prioritize what is important, urgent, and productive, and don't get caught up in the cycle of busyness. Social media is a great slurper-upper of energy. You need to be very tactical, in my opinion, about how you use it.
Gina, do you have other people in your business working with you now, even though you started alone? And what do you recommend in collaborating with others from the start?
Okay, so I think collaboration is really great. And if you want a super organization that is designed to help you collaborate, collaborationglobal.com, and you can come as a guest and see what it's like. It's a really supportive group, and there's lots of opportunities for collaboration. So you can come free, and if you decide it's very, very reasonable and lots of resources, I really urge you to go and have a look. I started off on my own. I very quickly realized that I was never going to learn all of this technology on my own. So one thing I have done right from the beginning is I've paid for a few hours a week technical support, and that's built in size and in magnitude as my business has grown and as I've wanted to do things. So I work, for example, with a guy in Australia who's built my membership site. I've got 2 different people who've built websites and who work with me on those. I have a lady who works with me for 12 hours a week, and she does a lot of the technical stuff around my book publishing, and will do some of the social media and stuff. And I've got somebody who works for me 6 hours a week who does lots of the admin-y stuff. And that, as I need other things, I buy those in for the length of the project, and then sometimes they're the right person for another project, but other times I'll look for the best person to do that. But recognize, particularly when you're starting, don't just think that having a VA will sort your problems out. Unless you're very clear about what you want them to do, and you're very good at communicating what you want them to do, all it will do is create hassle. All my people are self-employed, so I don't effectively employ anybody at the moment. All of them work on a self-employed basis, and I've done that for a number of reasons. One is that that when you employ people, then there are certain things, they have rights and you have a responsibility, but there are also certain costs involved. And so I made the decision, certainly at this point in my business, that I will have people who are self-employed. And ultimately, my plan is that it will be they will start to be, those who are regular contributors will start to be have part of the profit share.
I think very good advice on collaborating and building your team, and probably doing it around values probably as well. So people having the same or similar values.
Very important. Going into collaboration with other people is like going into a marriage.
Yeah.
All right. If you haven't got the same values, be aware that people will, and I'm not gloom and doom. You just need to be mindful that people can take your intellectual property, that people can, for many reasons, that what you end up with is not what you thought. And that's why I belong to Collaboration Global. A lot of my collaborations come through them. I have collaborations with other people. If you are going to collaborate, please make sure that you are really clear about who's doing what by when, and that it is in writing and that you have agreed it, because people make assumptions, and assumptions are dangerous.
Gina, I like you're talking about belief. However, when you got a lot of failure, especially when your family couldn't support you, how do you overcome the challenge to chasing your dreams?
Okay, the first is that you have to have a dream. That you have to have a dream that's strong, and a vision and a purpose that is strong. And if you have that, then nobody's going to deflect you. So the first thing I would say to you is, do examine why the failures. Because if you can learn from those, you won't make those mistakes again. You know, people fear failure, and yet I think that you should learn to fail better. Because as long as you're learning from it, it's feedback, which you don't get in quite the same way when you succeed. Of course, we all like to succeed. I'm not suggesting you set out trying to fail. But I think the first thing to do is to really look at yourself and be honest, not brutal, not judgmental, but be really honest about why have these things failed? Is it that you weren't prepared enough? Is it that you took on too much too soon? Is it that you gave up too quickly? Is it that you're very good at talking the talk, but you don't take sustained action? There could be lots of reasons. Many businesses fail, many projects fail because people go for the grand gesture, but they don't follow through. You're in a networking meeting now. I wonder how many of you will have sat down and copied the names from the participants and be trying to engage with them, connect with them on LinkedIn, for example. Most people who network waste the networking because they don't prepare for it, they don't make the most of it, and they don't follow it up. So grand gestures don't work in business. Small actions consistently taken is what works. And if you do that, and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, but it's so important. And I'll give you an example. I was working with a flooring company, and you know, they've turned things around hugely. I don't need to work with them anymore. And I said to them, what marketing you do? She said, we've done an email shot. I said, how did it go? I said, they said it failed. I said, so how many emails did you send out? 1. Did you follow the emails up with anything? No. Well, that's not an email campaign, and it's destined to fail, because one email in the middle of the white noise that people get with nothing else, you know, and this is an intelligent businessman. I mean, he'd been in business for 15 years before I started working with them. You have to think about what's the impact of what I'm doing. And if there's no follow through, then ask yourself, why on earth am I doing it in the first place?
So true. So true. Thank you so much, Gina. Thank you everyone for the questions as well, and such an engaged talk. It was absolutely enlightening and inspirational. Thank you so much, Gina.
Thank you, my pleasure. And do link with me LinkedIn and go to the Genuinely You YouTube site or the website. You'll find lots there. Thank you.
And now we have the wonderful talk from Hatty Fawcett. Hatty is coming to us today. Her business is called Focus for Business, but she's actually, so she's the founder of Focus for Business, but she has actually been raising money for businesses since she was 8. I love that. And Focus for Business is a training program, or provides training programs, mastermind groups, coaching, to make it quicker and easier for founders to raise investments. So I'm really excited to hear her talk today, and having also, because she's seen kind of the both sides for the investments as a founder herself for I think multiple startups, as I understand it. But also from the other side of looking what an investor actually looks for, etc. So yeah, without further ado, Hatty, over to you.
Gina, wow, what a brilliant talk. I loved it. And you got me right from the beginning there, because I was thinking, well, yeah, what's my why? And I think I know my why. I think it's, but I love creating things from nothing. And I realize I've been doing it most of my life, but I didn't really know what it was, what the why was. But even as Magda said, as an 8-year-old, I used to get my school friends together, and we'd come together and find ways to raise money for local businesses or initiatives that we thought were important, and because we wanted something to happen. And so I've always been doing this, make something happen from nothing. And I got a bit distracted in my life. I'd had a 15-year career in marketing. I was a marketing director at Moonpig and Woolworths.co.uk, and did a stint at the BBC as well. But thankfully, I got reconnected to my why whilst I was doing an MBA at Imperial College. And as part of that, entered a business plan competition. Now, we didn't win the competition, but to Gina's point, you know, sometimes your learnings come from failures. We didn't win the competition, but it reminded me of my why. I love creating things from nothing. So off the back of that, I went and joined a friend I made on the MBA in his startup. And we took the business from 0 to 3 million turnover in 2 years. Now, that was a roller coaster of a ride. But luckily, I quite enjoyed it. So coming out of that business, I thought I'd do it again. And I set up my own business. And the business grew quickly. So to make the most of the opportunity, I had to raise investment. I'd never done that before. I made loads of mistakes along the way, and I use those mistakes now to help others not make them, as it were. But ultimately, I was successful. I raised 2 rounds of investment, an angel round, and then went on to do crowdfunding twice. Coming out of that business, I had some fun looking after the investments that Kelly Hoppen made when she was a dragon on the TV show Dragon's Den. And so I think it gives me a unique perspective, because I've seen investment from both sides of the fence. I've seen what founders have to do to raise investment, to get the money to help their businesses grow. But I also know what angel investors in particular look for when they back an early stage business. And what I do these days is I run Focused for Business, which is, as Magda said, is a training and coaching business designed to make it quicker and easier for founders to raise investment. And in the last 12 months, the businesses I've worked with have raised £4 million collectively, with individual businesses raising between 10,000 and 840,000. And when John and the team asked me to speak today, John said, well, could you talk about what it takes to raise investment? What do you need? What do investors want to know from you? And that's what I'm going to share today. And for me, raising investment is a bit like baking a cake, because you've got to gather together all the ingredients, all the pieces of information that investors are going to need to see. You've got to put them together, craft them, if you like, into a good recipe that shows shows what a good business you have in the making. And then having crafted the recipe and put the ingredients together, you've got to bake the cake. You know, Mary Berry doesn't like soggy bottoms. Well, nor do investors like unbaked cakes or raw egg. So you have to do a bit of work to prove that you've got traction in your business. That's what investors call it, traction, before you go and speak to them. And then having got that, baked the cake, got the ingredients together, you want to make sure that it's the best it can be. So there's a bit of icing to do to the cake to make it really sing to investors. And that usually comes from getting feedback. I think Gina alluded to this, you know, feedback is really powerful. And so sharing some of the information you're planning to share with investors with others first, perhaps founders who've recently raised, or advisors and coaches, sharing that information with them first so that you can hone it and perfect it and really ice that cake is a good plan. And then ultimately, you're going to offer the opportunity. You're going to say to investors, do you want to be part of this business opportunity? You're like offering them a slice of the cake, if you like. So that's why I think the process of raising investment is like baking a cake. And just like in a cake, you have 4 key ingredients, often flour, butter, sugar, eggs. Well, there's 4 key ingredients in most of 4 key ingredients in the way investors assess whether or not they're going to back your business. But on top of that, there's this element of preference. You know, I quite like carrot cake. You might prefer chocolate or fruit cake. And different investors are going to have slightly different preferences. And you can't necessarily predict those. But just as all cakes probably have flour, butter, milk, sugar, and eggs, so investors use these 4 elements that you can see on the screen here: opportunity, traction, team, and the deal itself. They use these 4 broad elements to assess whether this is the cake for them or the opportunity for them. And what I thought I'd do is talk you through in a bit more detail what these elements are that investors are looking for, so that when you then present your business opportunity to investors, you know you're ticking all the boxes. You can check you've got the right ingredients in there. And I'm hoping there's some investors in the room, because if so, I'm quite keen for you to assess this as well, because is this the checklist that you use when you're assessing an opportunity? Because if I've missed something, I'd love to know it. I'd love that feedback so I can improve my own thinking. So let's have a look at the detail. And I talk about the 7 essentials of a successful investment deal. And I think most investors start with the opportunity. And they start by not saying, what's your product, but they start with what's the problem you're solving for your customers. Because I said at the beginning, I'm a marketeer, and I'm a firm believer that people don't buy products. They buy solutions to a problem. They've got something they can't do, or they want to be able to do something quicker or faster, or save some money in the process. And so they're looking for a solution to that problem. And if you can express your business in terms of the problem you're solving for your customers, you're going to get an investor's attention much more quickly than leaping straight in and talking about the wonderful products you've provided. The other benefit of talking about the problem you solve, you do need to come on to the solution, but if you think about a problem, you're also thinking about who experiences that problem. So you're thinking about your customers, your audience, the target market. And investors are very keen to hear this information. They want to know, how many potential customers are there? Some investors will get really specific, and they'll talk to you about 3 things: the total addressable market, the specific obtainable market, and in between that, where do you start? So where are you going to actually start talking to your customers? The specific serviceable available market and the specific obtainable market. But what they're really saying is, how big is the market? And is there potential for me to make money here? So are there enough customers who will buy this product at a price that allows the business to make money? So all of this talk about customers is about who they are, do you understand them, and do you know how many there are, so that the business can make money? And while we're talking about money, that gets us onto the 3rd essential. Investors want to know how you're going to monetize your business, because investors need a return. If they're going to put money into your business, they're going to want a return on that money. And you're only going to get a return if you can sell products to customers. And so the 3rd essential is to show a forecast of how you see your business growing. Usually this will be over 3 or 5 years, and it goes into great detail. It might show month by month how you see customers growing, the costs involved in getting those customers, but also the revenue that comes from those customers. And so hopefully there's profit at the end of that process. So a forecast, a really detailed forecast, is an important element for attracting an investor into your business. Then we come on to that second area, if you like, traction, that second segment of the cake. And our traction is about being able to demonstrate what you have already achieved. I said, we don't like raw eggs in cakes. Investors don't like businesses that are not yet proven. They're ideally looking for evidence that shows you've got something here. For me, traction is an equation. It's about having what some people call a minimum viable product, an MVP. It might not be the all singing, all dancing product that you're eventually going to take to market, but it's a product that solves a problem for customers. It's got to do that. It's got to solve a problem. So you've got your MVP. Once you've got that, you want to have elements, well, either first happy users of your product, so they might not be paying you yet, but they're using it and they're saying, this is great, it saves me time, saves me money, allows me to do something I can't previously do. And then better still would be they start paying you money for the privilege of that as well. So you've got MVP, first happy customers, and you multiply all of that by a proven and predictable marketing machine. What do I mean by that? Well, Really, it's about being able to say, if I spend X amount of pounds on Y number of marketing channels, I will get Z number of new customers. So X plus Y equals Z. And these three things, MVP, customers, and a marketing machine, are proof, if you like, proof that there really is a business, proof that people will pay for the customers and products and services that you're offering, and proof that you know how to get more customers because you've got a marketing machine that delivers that. So the traction piece or slice of the cake is really important. But so is the next slice, team, because running businesses, it's a complex thing, you know. It's pretty unusual for one person to have all the skills you need to run a successful business. And just as Gina alluded to, if you do try to do it all on your own, you're probably going to get burnout, and that's not good for anybody. Not good for you, not good for your business, not good for investors either. So building a team around you, a team with a mix of skills, is really important in order to be able to attract investment. And just like Gina said, actually, she doesn't employ anyone in her business. She's got around her a team of freelancers and agency workers and collaborators. There are lots of ways to build team. It doesn't necessarily mean you've got to go and, you know, suddenly have a huge payroll. But what you do want to focus on is the skills and experience that are needed to build the business. So I'm a marketeer, so I like to pride myself on being okay at marketing, but actually I'm not maybe so good at some of the accounting side of things. So I choose to bring in support there. So think, you know, be slightly positively self-critical with yourself and say, well, you know, what does this business need? What do I bring to the business? But what's missing? And who could I bring into the business that would fill that gap and make the business more appealing to investors? And I talked about skills and experience there, but there's another element. There's this element of relationships, and people know people. So when you bring somebody into the team, they can open doors for you. They might be able to introduce you to potential customers. They might be able to introduce you to collaborators or partners. So think about the partnerships and the role that relationships, the relationships people bring when they join your team, because that's important too. And the final element of the 7 essentials that investors are looking for really relate to the deal. So what is this investment opportunity? How much money are you raising is one element, and what are you going to do with that? How's it going to grow the business? What investors don't want necessarily is you saying, well, I'm raising X amount of money and that's to pay me a salary, because that isn't about growing the business. That's about giving you money to live the lifestyle to which you might like to become accustomed. Well, investors aren't going to back that. They want to know their investment is going to be used to grow the business, because if you grow the business, you're creating value in the business, and that means an investor is going to get a better return on their investment. So how are you using the money? Are you going to use it to create some new technology? Are you going to use it to do some more marketing, to recruit new members into the team? These are the sorts of things investors are looking to hear from you about. Alongside that, they want to know, you want to make sure that the money you raise is going to give you the time to do those things as well, because money alone isn't enough. It takes time to recruit people. It takes time to get your marketing right. It takes time to build the technology you need. So being able to raise enough money to give yourself the time to do the things you need is important, because every month that you're operating your business, you will have what investors call a burn rate. There are expenses that your business incurs, that happen irrespective of whether you've got customers coming into the business or you're selling products and services. So you've got to make sure that your burn rate is covered by the amount of money you raise. And typically, you need to raise enough money to last you for 12 to 18 months, because that's usually how long it takes to deliver a significant piece of value in your business that might then unlock the next round of funding, or a sale, or whatever might come next, new access to new funding. So how much you're raising and how long it gives you is important. And then what are you giving investors in exchange? That's the final of the 7 essentials. They want to know that they're going to get a return, so they're going to buy shares in your business. They want to know how many shares are they getting in exchange for that investment that you're giving them. And you've seen this on the television with Dragon's Den, you know. The dragons go into negotiation about, well, I'll give you all the money you want, but I want twice the number of shares. And you know, this is the negotiation that gets done with investors. What is the value you've created in your business? And are you giving investors the return that they want for the money they're bringing to the party to grow the business to the next level? So valuation and with that, the term sheet are going to be very important elements. So there's a lot to think about when you're raising investment. And the other thing, on top of all these, having got all these ingredients together and crafted the recipe so that it's just so, you've covered all the 7 essentials, it's then how are you going to communicate that to investors? A lot of people leap straight to a pitch deck, and I'm not a fan of that. I think a pitch deck should be presented. It's not meant to be a standalone document. But a lot of serious investors, high net worth individuals, the sort of people you see on Dragon's Den, they're really busy people, and they're not going to commit to allowing you to pitch to them until they've first seen something of the opportunity, seen for themselves, if you like, that this is the sort of cake they like. You know, they might be looking for fruitcake and you're offering them chocolate cake, and they need to know that before they commit time to looking at the opportunity. So a 1-page summary of your investment opportunity, structured around the 7 essentials that I've just taken you through, is a really important element in that process of getting investors on the hook. I often liken it almost like a CV. So when you're going for a job, nobody will give you the job interview until they've first seen your CV and seen you've got the skills, experiences, and competencies they're looking for. Well, it's the same with investors. They're not going to agree to meet you until they've seen the 7 essentials and they've seen for themselves that you've got the business to the stage at which they would be willing to invest, or you're operating in a sector that they're interested in, or you've got a suite of products and customers that they know something about and so they can contribute something to the business. You can't predict these things, so you have to put them in a 1-pager and allow the investor to see them for themselves. And then make the choice, a powerful choice, to meet you. And it's great for you as well, because you don't waste your time pitching to investors who are really never going to back your business because it's not their thing. It's not their favorite cake. They want chocolate and you're offering carrot. So a 1-page summary is a really good place to start. It allows investors to see what you've done with the business, and it make sure you're not wasting your time speaking to the wrong investors. I have a couple of resources for you, which I will pop in the chat box in a moment. One of which is a little an investment scorecard. It's called the Startup Investment Scorecard. It'll take you through 20 questions and allow you to start to assess for yourself whether you're ready for investment or not. It looks at 4 different areas. It looks at the opportunity, the traction you've achieved, the team that's involved, and how ready you are for investment. And then it gives you an overall score, but also allows you to see how you're performing in those different areas. So time and raising investment is a time-consuming process. So my advice to you would be, before you embark on that process, make sure you are investor ready, or so that and know that you're ready in all of those areas I talked about, the 7 essentials, before you go and waste your time talking to investors. If you discover that you are almost ready for investment, great, I'd be happy to help you with some introductions. The other thing I do, if you feel a little nervous and you're not quite sure about whether you've got everything you need for investors, I also run a funding accelerator, which is an 8-week program designed to get you preparing all the documents investors are going to need from you, gets you thinking about which investors are the right investors for you. And then I have a proven process for researching and reaching out to those investors as well, so that you get them on the hook quickly and close the deal fast. Because as I say, raising investment is really time consuming. In fact, the recent data from Bohurst, who track investments in early stage businesses, suggest it takes 15 months to raise investment. Well, with Funding Accelerator, we get you closing around in 3 months. So it speeds up the process quite a lot. But I'm going to pause there and I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thanks very much. That was excellent. How do you navigate your way through the minefield of releasing equity? Would you never go above 24%, for example? You got any guidance on that?
Yes, valuing early stage businesses is tricky. Because it's the way the corporate financiers value businesses, they use equations that rely on stable and predictable revenues. And what startup has stable and predictable revenues? We're all over the place, aren't we? Testing things out. So it is tricky. It really is tricky. On the funding accelerator I run, we use 5 different ways to value a business. And then we use that to get a range, and we narrow the range down through conversation and feedback with investors and advisors to a starting point. And then it becomes a negotiation, Dick. It's about what is fair. You need to make sure that you, as the founder, have got enough equity in the business to keep you motivated and working hard, because it is hard work running an early stage business. And an investor needs to make sure that they've got enough equity so that they can get a return on the investment that they've put into your business. So there isn't one answer to that question. A lot of people suggest that you want to aim not to, or to release equity around 15 to 20% per round, but that's such a ready reckoner rule. You've really got to be able to do that, you've got to be able to justify the value you've created in your business thus far, and to do that, you've got to have created value, which brings us back to the point of traction, really. On my LinkedIn profile, though, Dick, you'll find there is an article I wrote about 3 ways to value your business, and you might want to look that up to get some more guidance as well. But there's no one answer to the question. It's about you demonstrating what you've created in the business so far in terms of value, and about negotiating with an investor around what is a fair exchange of equity for the sums they're putting into your business.
Thank you so much for these opportunities. So I learned a lot, and I also recently approached an investor because we are an AI company, and we would like to raise more than £1 million to develop a product. And the investor feedback, they can only invest between, no more than 500K, but they would like to refer to other investors. So is that a good signal, or they just be polite? So from your point of view. And my second question is about we just got the approval from HMRC for the SEIS and the EIS scheme. So I plan to write the email to the investor. So seems like you prefer we have to prepare a executive summary for 1 page. So how about a video pitch including the email? Thanks so much.
So there's a lot in there, Crystal. I'm going to try and unpack those one bit by one bit, and if I forget anything,
yeah. So if you sorry, too much for you. Yeah.
I'm really glad that you've gone for SEIS and EIS. That will make it. There are certain types of investors who are particularly interested in that, because it allows them to offset their tax liabilities, and so it does make your business opportunity more appealing to some investors. But it's not the only thing. Okay, Crystal, the really important thing is what is the value you've created in your business. And the slight alarm bell in my head was when you said you hadn't yet created anything. What I like is you're operating in AI. AI is a very, very hot sector at the moment. Yes. A lot of investors are interested in that. So that's a thumbs up. But you said you haven't built it yet. And so to that point, I was talking about traction and evidence and proof points. You know, you're in a difficult situation because you haven't created it. You can't evidence it to investors. That means it's risky for them, because will it really happen? Can you make it work? How long will it take? There's so many ifs and buts and wherefores. So and to raise $1 million right now with nothing, an investor is going to see an awful lot of risk in that. And when there's a lot of risk, they're going to ask for a lot in return. And so the valuation, the amount of equity you have to sell in your business, may well end up being uncomfortable to you. You might end up selling more equity than you would like to. My advice to you would be, well, think about, could you tranche this? Could you break that $1 million down into stages? And Gina talked about, I think it was eating the cow one bite at a time. I often use the analogy, eat the elephant one bite at a time. Break this down. Rather than go all singing or dancing, this is what we need and it's the only way it's going to work. Can you break it into smaller bits? What could you do in stages? Could you build a bit of the tech and prove that works? How much money would you need to do that? Maybe not the full $1 million, just a bit. Once you've got a bit of tech, could you do some testing and then turn on some marketing? And then, so break the $1 million down into stages, break the project, the elephant, into stages, and then raise for that stage, because there is some evidence that suggests that if you raise, rather than raise all the money you're ever going to need in one go, breaking it into stages and raising over time actually gets you a better valuation, because you're reducing risk at each stage and therefore you sell less equity at each stage.
Wow, it's just so helpful. One more follow-up question, Chris. In terms of traction, currently we have a great collaborator in the University of Manchester. Their AI lab will work with together, and their leader have already engaged with us to evaluate the technology from the R&D perspective. So that's we can show that as a traction for investor.
You can certainly start to show it as a proof point. I don't think it's full traction. If you think about the way I describe traction, it's an equation: minimum viable product, first happy users, and then the ability to get more users. So it's not full traction yet, but it's a step on the road, and that's really important, really important. I would say, you know, what's the next thing you need to prove? If you've proved it works in a lab environment, could you now prove it works in a use case with some customers? Even if those customers don't pay you, but you get the technology being used by a customer group, and you get the feedback from them. Because when an investor can hear what customers are saying or potential customers are saying, that's very reassuring for them as well. And then if you can show how you monetize it as well, how you make money from that tech, even better. Okay, great. Thanks so much for your advice. Crystal, it's a pleasure. And do the little startup investment scorecard, because I think that will help you see where you are on the journey. Yeah, I will do that. That is seems like it's a very great tool to know where we are and what the gap we have.
There's one from Paula. She's asking about the Accelerator program. I think the funding one that you were discussing, the 8-week one, how much it is, and maybe you can give a little bit more details on it. How would it work? Is it just, is it always open, or do you have like specific enrollment times? It is a specific enrollment, and it is a invitation only program. So everyone who goes on the program needs to have got some traction. Otherwise, I don't think you should be being distracted into raising investment. I think you should be focused on getting traction. So there is an element of eligibility, but the program uses a methodology. It's called the key to unlocking investment. And if you think about a key, you pick it up by the head and you position it in the lock. And that's where we start with the Funding Accelerator, positioning your opportunity so that it attracts the right type of investor for your business. Then the key has 3 little prongs to it, and we look at traction, that equation I was talking about with Crystal. We look at what's the right ask. Again, like Crystal, sometimes we get you to stage your investment rather than raise it all in one go. And then we look at valuation, like Dick was asking me, the different ways to value your business. With those 4 things, traction, ask, valuation, and positioning, we put them into a range of pitch documents, not just a pitch deck, not just the one-pager. You need an elevator pitch, you need a financial forecast, you need a valuation, you need a valuation justification. So all those elements you prepare on the program, and then running through it's about targeting investors and where do you find them, because you may feel, I don't know any investors, where am I going to find them? So we help you with that.
And then we have a process for reaching out to them, warming them up and closing the deal quickly. The program runs over Zoom, and it runs 5 times a year. The next program starts in the middle of November. And each week we meet for 90 minutes over Zoom for a workshop around one of those elements of the key to unlocking investment. And then at the end of the workshop, you take an assignment. If you do all your assignments, then you'll have all the assets you need to give to investors. But you also bring them back to the next week's class, and that's where we peer review it, which is really important because you pick up ideas from each other, not just from me, but you hear somebody say something and you see how well that lands. And then you hear how something else might land quite flat and you think, oh, well, maybe I'm guilty of doing that. So you learn from each other. And it allows you to see your own strengths and weaknesses, and where you're feeling weaker, we have a menu of mentors who support the program, and you can pick and choose from those to decide who you want to work with to improve your weaknesses. Some people focus on valuation because it's so tough, others on forecasting because maybe they don't feel so confident around the numbers, others on positioning. You work out what you need. And then the final session is pitch day, where you pitch to your peers, the mentors on the program, but also to invited investors. And that's where the introductions to investors starts from, really. The answer to the question about cost is it's a flat fee. I don't take equity because you don't need me on your cap table. And I don't do success fees because funnily enough, one of the surprising outcomes of the program has been 25% of the cohorts decide not to raise immediately. So I don't want to be pushing you to raise so that I get paid. So it's a flat fee, and it's 2,500 for the 8-week program, all the templates, mentor sessions, pitch day, and introductions that come with that.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful information. I think anybody thinking about obviously all that, because it is such a, like, for me at least, I always feel like it's such a minefield, and having like a program or some sort of like guiding you through, it's amazing. So yeah, thank you for that.
I do run a number of weekly funding clinics that are half-hour calls, one-to-one, either with myself or a member of my funding team. So that can be a good way to pick up on the specifics.
Brilliant. Oh, that's so helpful. Yeah, thank you so much. That was really informative and really helpful. And also, again, thanks to Gina for her inspiring talk. It's been a great meeting today.
Hasn't it been a great one?
Yes. Yeah, we have our upcoming events, and actually we talked about SEIS and EIS. So there is a workshop coming up from the Space to Grow program, I believe, or is it Angel at Essex? One of the two from UEZ. For that way. So we are funding your business idea investment readiness on the 19th of October. And then the 26th of October is the understanding the tax side of things. And obviously we have our next Effie on the 12th of November, all about Tech Nation and the award-winning business woman, Sue Nelson. And I can't, sorry, my screen is not, and Ian Marsh is also coming. So, and then the exciting announcement, we're on Slack. So we've listened to you guys. Last week, we kind of, last month, sorry, we discussed, we wanted to have a kind of a network together. We were thinking about different, LinkedIn group or whatever we wanted to do, but then actually we looked into Slack, and we will send out an invite to everybody who attended today and last month. You will receive a link and an invitation to the channel, which is specific to this FE meeting, and you can all connect with each other. You can exchange ideas. We want to make it a safe space, so we will keep an eye on it. If anything is happening in there that we don't agree with, that we will safeguard it. Let's put it that way. That's a nice word for it. So yeah, it's a safe space to connect, to share ideas, to ask questions, and hopefully others can answer. It's all for you guys to really mingle with one another outside of these meetings, because obviously, yeah, these meetings are only once a month, and also sometimes you don't. We didn't have today the time, for example, with the breakout. So it's a nice thing to be involved with one another and share ideas. So that was our exciting announcement for today and for this month. And so yeah, we will send out the link, and hopefully, you don't have to if you don't want to join. It's completely up to you, but it's there if you would like to. And we'll like Lauren and I are on there. John is on there. I think Josh is on there as well. So everybody's on there already. So yeah, come and join us. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you so much again to the two wonderful speakers of Gina and Hatty. And thank you so much for everybody who attended and asked questions and just engaged. And we can't wait to see you all next month on the 12th of November. See you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Good luck,
Becky.
everyone.